Hi Raptor fans, my name is Teresa and I work here at the Montana Raptor Conservation Center in Bozeman, Montana. Lately we have been covering how to identify different raptor species in Montana, and today we're going to be talking about the fastest of those species, the falcons. So in Montana we are lucky enough to have 5 different species of falcons that you can find here, and we're going to start off with the smallest of them and work our way up. So this here is Stella, and she is an American kestrel, which is the smallest species of falcon in Montana and also across the United States. There's actually about 17 identified subspecies of American kestrels, but we're going to talk a little bit about how to identify the ones that you'll find in Montana. So Stella here is a female, and most of the time when you're looking at raptors in the wild, the females and males look very similar. Typically just the males are a little bit smaller than the females, and that's kind of the main difference you'll be seeing. But the American kestrels actually have color sexual dimorphism, so they have different colors based on whether or not they're a female or male. So Stella here is a female, and you can see she's got lots of beautiful brown streaks on her belly. She also has brown and black striping on her back and on her tail. The male kestrels actually look a little different. They have black polka dots on their bellies, and they also have blue-gray color on their wings and some white and black streaking on the bottoms of their tails and a big black bar on the top of their tail. So they look a little bit different, and that can be helpful. The boys will be a little more flashy to attract a female's eye during the mating season, and then the females have extra camouflage that will help them blend in the wild. And actually behind me I have a picture of a male and female. So right here on the top is the male, and right next to him on the right side of the picture is the female. So you can kind of see a little bit of what they would look like a long ways away and how you can tell the difference. Now these guys can be hard to tell sometimes from songbirds since they are pretty small. One thing that does help me if I'm looking at a bird for a long period of time trying to tell what species, the kestrels often do that little head bob that you see Stella doing right now. It looks like she's agreeing with everything I'm saying. That little tiny head bob actually is helping her kind of judge the distance of what she's looking at and tell how far away it is from her. Ooh. Very nice rouse. So birds will often rouse to get dust and dirt out of their feathers. Also shows that she's feeling very, very comfortable, so that's a good sign. Now, these birds will do that head bob. Also, you can see a little bit of that kind of tail pump that she does. Some birds will use their tail, well, most birds use their tails to help them balance, but kestrels often will pump their tails while they're perched, and so that can be another way that you can tell that it's a kestrel versus a songbird. Also, falcons, I don't know if you can see on Stella, but they have very long pointed wings and a very thin, long tail. Songbirds are not going to have quite as long of a tail, and it's not going to be quite as thin as these kestrels. Another thing that you might notice on Stella is she has stripes underneath her eyes. Some people will call them mustache stripes. They kind of look like they have little mustaches. But those are called malar stripes, and they act just like when football players or baseball players put black under their eyes. That will help to absorb sunlight and keep it from reflecting back into their eyes. You can see Stella here doesn't have much of an orbital ridge, which is that big eyebrow bone that sticks out over hawks and eagles' eyes. So those malar stripes are going to absorb sunlight so that she can see, even though she doesn't have anything blocking the sun from her eyes above her eyes. So she has those very black stripes underneath her eyes. Also, she's pretty small, so if you're looking at her and trying to decide, you know she's a raptor, but you're like, ooh, was she a falcon? When she is hovering over the ground, that's called kiting, and often kestrels will do that. They flap very, very fast and kind of hover over the ground looking for their prey. You will often find these birds perched on telephone poles, telephone wires, and fence posts near open fields. She wants to pick at the glove a little bit. And those will be good areas for them to sit and wait for their prey while they're hunting. And then they'll swoop down near those open fields. Now these birds are cavity nesters, so a lot of times it's kind of hard to find their nests because they will be in holes, in trees, in cliff sides, sometimes even in the sides of buildings if there's a little bit of a hole or a space for them to make a nest. But oftentimes these birds will be finding their cavities near open fields. And that's actually a really great way to help out kestrels in the wild, is to build them a kestrel nest box, and you can set it up on a post near a nice open field, and maybe after a couple of years you'll have some baby kestrels hatching near your yard, which can be pretty fun. Now these birds are very, very picky, so if you set one up, don't feel bad if they don't nest there right away. Sometimes they have to scout it out for a couple years to make sure it's a great spot for them to raise their young. Now this is the smallest species. A step above kestrels is going to be the merlin. Over there you see right here. The merlin is a little bit more bulky. They have slightly broader wings than the kestrels, and they're a little bit bigger. They also do not have the blue-gray color on their wings. They don't have any polka dots. They do have a little bit of color, sexual dimorphism. So the females will be more brown along with the juvenile merlins, and then the males will be a lot more of a gray, kind of grayish, slate gray color all throughout their whole body. Now, merlins are very big bird hunting birds, so you might find them near your bird feeders, same with the kestrels. But the merlins especially are often found in people's bird feeders, but they'll also hunt over near open fields as well. A really great way to tell you're around a falcon or a kestrel is to listen for their sounds. Especially kestrels are very, very vocal. Since they're smaller, they often have to pay attention for predators, same with merlins. So they are very, very vocal when they see a predator. A lot of times they will they'll dart really fast to escape it, but they'll also send off an alarm call for any other kestrels in the area. So they have a very high-pitched, it's called a kili call, and it's very high-pitched. I can't do it, but I highly recommend looking it up. And the more you hear those sounds, the more you can pinpoint when you are around kestrels and merlins and other falcons. So these are the two smaller falcon species you can see here in Montana. As it does get colder, these birds will often migrate down south a little ways. Kestrels do have a leapfrog migration, so if they go down south and there's a lot of American kestrels a little further south, they will pass that population of kestrels and go even further south. So sometimes the Montana kestrels will be way down in the southern parts of the U.S., even though there are other kestrels a little bit further north than they are. And then they'll often come back here in early spring to start looking for nesting grounds. Now, if you have any questions about Stella or kestrels or merlins and any great ways to identify them, please put them in the comments below. Okay, here is our slightly larger, maybe just a little bit more than slightly, larger falcon species. This here is Millie, and she is a peregrine falcon. Now, the peregrine falcon can be found in Montana, but it can also be found on every single continent except for Antarctica. The word peregrine actually means wanderer, so they are found very many places, and we are lucky enough to have the peregrine falcon in Montana. Now, behind me, I actually have pictures of two different types of falcons. This is the prairie falcon. It's a little bit smaller than the peregrine falcon. And then you've got the peregrine falcon just below it. You can see the prairie falcon has a lot more brown colorations in it. It does have a lot of those little spots and kind of barring on the chest. It also has a nice white kind of eyebrow ridge. The prairie falcon can be found in open fields, of course, like their name suggests. And then the peregrine falcon can be found oftentimes on cliff sides, also found in kind of cities with skyscrapers, since they often will nest on the top of cliffside. Skyscrapers make a great change for that in big cities. And the peregrine falcon can also be found a lot of times near coastal areas, but they are very common across most of the United States. They were a little bit more rare because of when the populations were lowering back in the 1940s, when the use of DDT was very common. Since DDT, a pesticide that we used back in the 40s, has been banned, the peregrine falcon population, among with many other raptor species that were affected by DDT, has come back up. Also thanks to many breed and release programs that have been happening across the United States as well. Now, when you're looking for peregrine falcons, definitely keep an eye out for that very dark hood you can see around Millie's eyes. You can see she's got very large malar stripes underneath her eyes, but she also has that dark color all across the top of her head. So it kind of looks like she's wearing a little bit more of a hood or a helmet. And her back is almost completely dark gray, slate gray color. She also has some nice gray stripes on her tail. And her belly has lots of black barring and lots of kind of stripes on there. And also, even though they do have a few various colorations, she's a little bit more brown. You can see ones that have more of a white color. They do often have that nice dark gray. Hers is almost a little bit more of a black color on their back, and then those stripes. Now, when they're younger, they often have slightly different colorations, different stripes, and also the skin on their feet, around their beak, and around their eyes is a little bit more of a bluish gray color. So they look a little different when they're younger. And these birds can be found, like I said, near cliff sides, but they also can be hunting near open areas as well. The peregrine falcon, of course, is the fastest animal on the planet, and they can dive at speeds over 200 miles an hour. So they're very built for that. You can see she has very straight pointed wings, just like Stella, and a long thin tail. She's very stiff feathers. So when they're flying, they're a little bit more of kind of a very sharp pointed silhouette, and then usually their tails are tucked in kind of a straight line. You will not often see these birds soaring. They typically are going to try to fly to different perches, and they're more so built for speed rather than long sustained flights. So peregrines will often go way up high in the air, and they'll come down in a steep dive called a stoop, where their wings are tucked and their body is very bullet shaped. And if you're ever out and about and you see a large group of birds go up in the air, they're likely being chased by something, and it might be a peregrine falcon. Another good way, of course, to tell you're around a peregrine is to get kind of used to their sounds that they're making. Now, if you see a falcon perched, it can be kind of hard to tell the difference between a hawk and a falcon, but a lot of times the falcons are very straight. When they're sitting up straight, you can see when she's kind of up a little bit more, she's very straight shaped, whereas hawks are a little bit more leaned forward for balance. But these birds often sit up very nice and straight. Also, if you are able to see them nice and close, you can see that Millie here has very long, thin toes. And that is, of course, for very good grip on birds that she catches. So those long, thin toes will allow her to wrap around her prey and get a good hold on them. And falcons use their beaks oftentimes to kill their prey more than their feet. A lot of raptors will use the strength of their feet to kill their prey. But if you can see Millie's beak a little bit, she has what's called a tomial notch or a tomial tooth on either side of her beaks, which is a little kind of sharp edge, like a quarter of the way in on her beak right in the front. And that's going to allow her to very, very quickly and expertly sever her prey's spinal cord with that tomial notch. Now, looks like Millie's getting a little hot. We're having some nice warm days here in Montana. So I'm going to go ahead and put her back in her enclosure. If you guys have any questions about Millie or peregrine falcons or how to identify them, please put them in the comments below. All right, everybody, here is our last and very chatty falcon species we're going to meet here today. This is Lily, and she is a gyrfalcon, which is typically an Arctic species of falcon. Now, this bird can be seen here in Montana in the very, very cold months if there's not a lot of food available for them up in the Arctic. They are a very white colored bird. You can see Lily is very, very white in this picture down here. Has a little bit more striping across. They can also have some gray colorations as well. Now, these birds are the largest species of falcon that you can find in the world, and Lily being a female, she's exceptionally large. She's doing a really good job of showing you what gyrfalcons sound like. She's an exceptionally chatty bird, and she's very, very good at showing us, or telling us, when another raptor is nearby. Now, of course, you can see these birds in the Arctic, in the tundra here in Montana. They can be found in kind of open areas. They often are found near sagebrush shrubland, and they will typically be hunting on the ground, maybe hunting a little bit more horizontally, flying close to the ground, or perched on the ground. If you have any questions about falcon species, they're all pretty amazing, and we're lucky enough to have them here in Montana. Please place them in the comments below, and have a great rest of your day. See you later.